Begin today the Gemara at the bottom of Daf Lamed Dal Lamed Beis, the last three words. So we're in the middle of discussing the story of the Meraglim. But the truth is, as we'll see soon, this is really in the middle of another subject. The main subject the Gemara was discussing was what happened when Yidden crossed into Eretz Yisrael, the Nissim that happened when they crossed the Yarden, and what they did following that. But because we brought up in the middle this what happened when they crossed the Yarden, they picked up these very large rocks and they took it with them. And it said that similarly the Meraglim carried these very large fruits, the Anovim and so on from Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara sort of took a break from this Braise to discuss the story of the Meraglim. But the Gemara will very soon come back to the story of Yidden crossing into Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so continuing further about the Meraglim, Vayeshuvu mitura Oretz, and the Meraglim returned from Eretz Yisrael. And then the pasuk continues and says, Vayelchu Vayevayu. They went and they came, and it says Vayevayu al Moshe. They returned to Moshe to bring the report about what they saw. So the question over here is, why does it say Vayelchu Vayevayu? That word Vayelchu is extra. Here it's talking about them returning. So it should just say they returned and came to Moshe. What's the Vayelchu? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rab Shimon ben Yochi. So Rabbi Yochanan said the name of Rab Shimon ben Yochi, Makish Halicha Labiyah. This teaches us that we compare their going to their returning, to their coming back. Just like when they came back, they already had a full devised plan of how to convince Yidden not to go to Eretz Yisrael. So too when they went, they already had that plan to talk about how negative Eretz Yisrael is. But here the Rebbe is medayik in the Sikha about this lashon of the Gemara, that before, when the Gemara said that Moshe Rabbeinu davened for Yeshua, it said Shaliyah bat sas meraglim. It didn't say Eitzerah, because before they left, there was no Eitzerah yet. They were thinking about how they're going to spy the land, as opposed to just touring the land. They deviated a little bit from what Moshe Rabbeinu said, but there was no Eitzerah. It was all with positive intention to bring the good report to Eden. But over here, talking about something else. Once they left Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayelchu, when they were on their way, going to Eretz Yisrael, then it already developed into an Eitzerah, where they had a negative plan to bring a bad report to the Eden. And then they said to Moshe Rabbeinu, they said the story of Vayemru Banu V'Gaimer. And what does it say in the beginning over there? What was the first point of their report? They said, look how beautiful the land is. V'gam Zavas Cholo V'Dvashi V'Zeh Pirya. Look at these beautiful fruits that we have from Eretz Yisrael. And then after that, the pasuk says, Efes, however, Ki Az Ha'am. The people living in Eretz Yisrael are very mighty. So at the beginning, they actually said something positive about Eretz Yisrael. They presented the fruits to show the Eden how great and beautiful Eretz Yisrael is. Why did they do that if their point was to say negative? Rabbi Yochanan says, and here there's a siman on the continuation of the Gemara, Emes, Lavadai, or another Gersa is supposed to be Lekadai, and Leviyah. Mishum Rab Meir, so he said in the name of Rab Meir, Kol Lashon Hara, She'ein Boi Dvar Emes B'tchilasai, a Lashon Hara that doesn't have something that's true in the beginning of it, so then people don't listen to it because you realize that there's no truth to this. So when the Meraglim said and brought the fruits, the good fruits, so they wanted to present something and show that we're here, we're honest, we're saying the truth, and we're even showing you these fruits that we're bringing. Therefore you could trust us when we tell you that the nation living in Eretz Yisrael is extremely mighty and we can't conquer it. What happened after this? So the Yidden became very upset and they started crying. They didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Vayas kolev esa'am el Moshe. So what does this mean? What does the word Vayas mean? And what does el Moshe mean? To Moshe. Amar Rabbe, so Rabbe says, Shei sisan b'dvarim. Kolev sort of convinced them. In other words, he deceived the Yidden when he began talking. They didn't realize what Kolev was going to say. Why did Kolev have to do this? So the Gemara says, Pasach Yeshua opened his mouth to speak. Or it seems like Rashi here is guide is Chazye. He saw Yeshua began speaking, the Komishtoi. He began speaking and he wanted to convince the Yidden that no, Eretz Yisrael is a good place and we could conquer the land. Amri Lei, the Yidden responded to Yeshua. They didn't let him speak. They said, Dain Reish Ketir. This one that his head is cut off. What does this mean? So Rashi says this means that he has no children. So he's not concerned about what's going to be with his children that are going to enter into Eretz Yisrael. So Yimalel, he should talk and he's going to convince us to bring our families and our children to Eretz Yisrael. So now Omar, when Kalev saw how they cut off Yeshua, he said, if I'm going to talk, Omri bi milse, so they're going to say something against me as well, v'chasmanli, and they're going to quiet me down. So therefore, what did he do? And so Kalev began speaking, and he said to the Yidden, is this the only thing that Ben Amram has done to us? That was his opening statement. Savri, the Yidden thought that he's going to now speak about the negative things about Moshe Rabbeinu. Ishtika, so they were all quiet. So now he had their attention. He said, he took us out of Mitzrayim, and he split the Yam Suf for us, and he gave us to eat the man. He did all these good things for us. So for sure, we should trust him that Eretz Yisrael is a good place, and it's only going to be, we're going to be able to conquer the land. The Rebbe speaks about this piece here in the Gemara, and the Rebbe points out regarding Ben Amram. Why did he use the term Ben Amram? Because he had a problem. If he says Moshe Rabbeinu's name, he has to say Moshe Rabbeinu. You can't say your teacher's name, especially in his presence, without giving him the proper title. The moment he would say Moshe Rabbeinu, the Yidden would know that he wants to speak about his praise, so they wouldn't let him talk. So instead he says Ben Amram. So he didn't say his name, so he doesn't have to say Moshe Rabbeinu. Not only that, the Rebbe points out that in a way, when you say Ben Amram, it's even more covered. Because when you're in the presence of your teacher and you're not saying his name at all, you're just saying Ben Amram, that's even more honorable. So that's why he used after this term of Ben Amram. And the things that he chooses to speak about over here, there's a sikh of it in Chelik Ches. Rebbe contrasts to what the Gemara says here to the way Rashi quotes this. Rashi quotes it a little bit different, and there Rashi says that his main point of Kalev was to bring out the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu brought all these tremendous miracles for Yidden. So for sure, he can bring a miracle for us to go into Eretz Yisrael. But in the Lashon of the Gemara, it's more mashma that his main point was to show how Moshe Rabbeinu is interested in our good and all these good things that he's done for us. Hechilanu es haman, he gave us to eat the money, took care of us. He provided for us for all these 40 years in the Midbar, or actually it wasn't 40 years yet, it was just a short period of time that they were, but he provided us the month for all this time, so for sure he can take care of us to go into Eretz Yisrael. And then he said additionally, Im Yaima, Asu Sulames Va'alu L'Rekiya, if he would tell us, build ladders and climb up to the heavens, Loi Nishmaloi, are we not going to listen to him? Ole Nala V'Yirash Noisa. That's what he meant when he said, Ole Nala, we'll go up and we'll inherit the land, even if it takes to climb ladders. So here, so we see here how Kalev spoke to Yidden. In the beginning, he was trying to reason with Yidden. He was trying to convince them and explain them, look at the past, and this will indicate the future, what Moshe Rabbeinu could do for us, or how he's interested in our good. But then, after that, once he had their attention and he spoke about this, then he says, forget about, don't use your seichel. Moshe Rabbeinu, you have to follow him, even if it means going up with ladders to Shemayim. Doing something which seems to be impossible, we can still do it if Moshe Rabbeinu tells us to do this. So here you see the difference between Yeshua and Kalev. Yeshua was not able to break through, and he didn't listen to him b'chlal, but Kalev was able to. And not only was Kalev able to speak to Yidden, but he was even able to get through this message to Yidden, such a powerful point that you have to be bottle and listen to Moshe Rabbeinu, even if it means taking the ladders, climbing up to Shemayim. So the Rebbe in the Sikha explains the reason is because Yeshua, Moshe Rabbeinu davened for him, that he should not be caught up in the plan of the Meraglim. Kalev davened himself. Kalev went to the Kivrei Avis in Aras HaMachpelah and davened for himself. And here you see the power of when a person davens himself, that there's a tremendous koyach, mumat l'mayla, when a person davens himself, that brings a tremendous koyach for Kalev to even go surpass the koyach of Yeshua, that he couldn't bring out his point in the same powerful way that Kalev was able.
This is in Sichos Ches?
In Chelik Ches, in Parsha Shlach. Rebbe continues, the Gemara that is continues, V'ho'anoshim asher alu imay, and the people, the Meraglim that is, that came up with him, so they said, Loi nuchal v'greimer. No, we will not be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rab Chanine bar Papa. Rab Chanine bar Papa says about this, what do they mean when they said Loi nuchal? Dove gadol dimbru b'meraglim b'yisashah. The Meraglim at that time said something very strong, something very, very scary. They said that he's strong, that they are stronger than him. Who's stronger? Who's the him? Al tikri mimenu. Don't read this as understanding. What Rashi here actually says, not to be guided these words al tikri, because it's not actually changing the reading of the words. Elo mimenu kaviyachol. When it says mimenu means that they meant to say not that the kings and the people in Eretz Yisrael are greater than us, but they meant to say the greater than the Eibishter himself. Afilu balabayis. Even the owner of the house, the Eibishter, he can't take his vessels out of there. Like a person that gives his vessels as a deposit, as a pekadon for someone, and that person is not available for you to go and remove it and to take it back. The Eibishter placed the Goyim in the Eretz Yisrael, and Kaviyachol, the Eibishter himself, can't take them out of the land. That's what the Meraglim said at that point. What does this taka mean? What were the Meraglim saying? So the Rebbe explains in the Sikh and Chelik Daled that what the Meraglim was saying was, if the whole point why the Eibishter wants us to go into Eretz Yisrael is because he wants us to come down. Wants us to come down from a midbar, which is Olam HaDibur or Olam HaMachshava, and we have to go into Olam HaMaisa, into this physical world. So the whole point the Eibishter wants us is to come into Teva. If you're going to try to analyze Alpit Teva, if we're able to conquer them, the answer is no, impossible. They understood that the Eibishter wants daf. They agreed, of course. Could the Eibishter make a miracle? They weren't foolish. They know the Eibishter had made Kriyas Yamsuf and all the other miracles they saw. But if the point over here today is that we're going to Eretz Yisrael and things Al Piteva, the Eibishter created Teva, and that's the Balabais. The Eibishter created and placed the Goyim there Al Piteva, and Al Piteva we can't go and conquer them. That's what they were saying. Right, the pasuk says, "Eretz echeles yishvehi." They said this is a land that eats up, it consumes its inhabitants. What does this mean? They saw people in Eretz Yisrael constantly dying, and therefore they said people are dying there. Well, so what does this mean? Darish Rava says, "Amar Hakadosh Baruch Hu." The Eibishter says, "Ani chashavti al teva." I calculated this. I had in mind that this should be for the good. V'heim chashvu l'ra, and they thought that this is something negative. What does this mean? Ani chashavti al teva. The Eibishter says, I thought this to be for the good. Chol heicha dematu meis chashiv dedu. Wherever the Meraglim arrived, someone prominent of the people there in Eretz Yisrael died. Why? So that they should be busy with the burial and with this person that died. And they shouldn't ask, who are these people here? Who are these strangers that are visiting our land? Or others say, what was the taiva that the Eibishter wanted here? Iyov, nach nafshay. Iyov passed away. Now Iyov, living amongst them, he was a tremendous chus that was protecting them from Yidden coming to conquer Eretz Yisrael. And everybody in Eretz Yisrael was busy with Iyov, with the burial of Iyov, and with eulogizing Iyov. And but the Meraglim, they took this all in the negative, and they said, look, the land, this is a place that everyone's dying there. Then it says, the Meraglim said, in our eyes we were like grasshoppers, because we were such great giants there. We were just these small midgets, these small grasshoppers. And then they added, in their eyes, we were also grasshoppers. The Meraglim lied, because then when they said that we felt ourselves like grasshoppers, fine. If that's what they felt like, they can say that. But when they said that this is the way we were in their eyes, how do they know that the Meraglim, in the eyes of the people in Eretz Yisrael, were like grasshoppers? That's what their attitude was. So the Gemara says, "What v'loihi?" This is not a proof that the Meraglim are liars, because what happened was ki mavri aveli tusi arzi, as the Gemara just said, that they were coming back from burying their dead, and they came to sit under these big the cedar trees, and they were like the avelos. They come and they eat after the levaya, and they were sitting there. So again, tusi arza hava mavri. So they were sitting under these very tall trees. Now v'chichazinu. So when the Meraglim saw that they were noticed, Salki Yasvi Bilani, so they went to hide, and they sat somewhere in a tree to hide from the people in Eretz Yisrael. Shami, the Ka'amri, they overheard the people, the giants, saying, Kachazinan Inchi, the Damu Lekamtzi Bilani. We see human beings, and they're like these little ants, or like these little grasshoppers crawling around in the trees, and they look like human beings. So they overheard what the giants in Eretz Yisrael were saying. So therefore they said, that this is how we were viewed in their eyes. Then the Pasuk says, they cried. When the Meraglim returned, it was Erev Tisha B'Av. And then the night, when it says that they cried that night, so that was the night of Tisha B'Av. So the Eibishter says about this, here the Yidden are crying tonight, Tisha B'Av, and they cried for nothing. I will establish this day to be a day of crying for all future generations. Then it says, that all the people wanted to stone Yeshua and Kalev. That's a simple pshat of the pasuk, that they were talking about the positive, and they were trying to convince you to go to Eretz Yisrael. They wanted to stone them. But the pasuk afterwards says, the glory of Hashem appeared at the Oil Mayid. So Amar Abchir Barabe Melamed, What this teaches us is shenotlu avonim v'zarkum klapi maila, that they took rocks and threw it up to heaven, that they wanted to throw it against the Eibishter. They were so angry that the Eibishter wants them to go into Eretz Yisrael. So the men, the Meraglim, that spoke about the negative of the land, so they died with a terrible plague. They died a very painful and terrible death. So Rashi says that the drasha is because it says ba magefa, it doesn't say bi magefa. Ba is like saying on the specific unusual death. Taisa says that the drasha is because it says so you read ra b'magefa together, that they died in a terrible plague. So Rab Shila, he darshaned that what happened to them is as follows. Malamed, this teaches us, their tongue stretched out, it became, their tongue went out of their mouth and became very long. V'nofal al tiburam, and their tongue went all the way down to their navel. And there were these maggots coming out from their tongue, and v'nichnasas b'tiburam, and entering through their navel into their stomach. Umitiburam v'nichnasas b'lishainam, and from their navel going back into their tongue, into their mouth, and that was the way they died. So this was the Misa Mishona. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, "Ba'aschere meisu." They died with this illness that's in the throat that causes a person to strangle to death, because they spoke. This is all midah kaneged midah. They spoke with their mouth, with their tongue. So therefore, that's what they died with. Okay, this is the conclusion of the drashos of the Gemara on the Meraglim. Now the Gemara returns to the brayse that it began with before, when Yidden crossed into Eretz Yisrael. So that brayse continues. As soon as the last of Yidden crossed into Eretz Yisrael and went out of the Yarden, Chazru mayim l'mekayma, the water returns back to its regular flow. Shenem, as the pasuk says, Vayihi ba'alois hakayim noisei areim bris Hashem yitoich Yarden. When the kainim, the ones that were carrying the Aron, they came out of the Yarden, not go kapi ragles kainim ela charova, the feet of the kainim come back out into the dry land. Vayishuvim me'Yarden l'mekayma vayelchuk t'mel shulshem al kol gedaisav. And the Yarden was going like yesterday and the day before on all of its to the edges of the Yarden. But now the Gemara says what happened is Nimtza Aron v'noisov, the Aron and the ones that are carrying it, Kainim, which is the Kainim, mitzad echad, they actually came out of the Yarden on the east side, not on Eretz Yisrael. They came out on the other side. V'Yisrael mitzad echad, and the Yidden were on the other side inside the Eretz Yisrael. Okay, what happened was the Kainim entered into the Yarden, and as soon as they entered into the Yarden, the water stopped. But when the Kainim went back out, they went right back. They took a step back out where they were on the east of the Yarden. They didn't cross over together with the Yidden. And the Rashi says this. You can see this. It's proven from the pasuk, because as we'll see, the Gemara here quotes that Yeshua tells the Kainim after the Yidden crossed in and after the water flowed back, then he tells the Kainim, okay, that now they should come across. So what happened? So the Yidden were in Eretz Yisrael and the Kainim on the other side. So Nasa Aron es Nasa Over. The Aron now lifted up the Kainim over the water and carried them over in the ear into Eretz Yisrael. Shenem, as the pasuk says, Vayihi kashetam kol ha'am laver, the whole nation finished crossing over. Vayaver Aron Hashem va'Kainim lifnei ha'am. Now, after this, the Aron, Hashem, and the Kainim, they went in front of all the Yidden, and all the Yidden watched this amazing miracle, how the Aron lifted up the Kainim and brought them into Eretz Yisrael. So now, Rashi points out over here the order of the Psukim, that you see that Yeshua told them to come afterwards. Okay. Now, the Mefarshim just explained the obvious question that the Kainim could have just crossed in together with all the Yidden. It wasn't necessary for them to step back out on the other side of the Yarden on the east. But obviously, the Eibishter wanted to show this unique miracle here of the Aron, that you think that the Kainim are carrying the Aron, and the Kainim are the ones that are bringing this nest. It's the Aron. The Aron is carrying the Kainim. So the Eibishter wanted to demonstrate, Lefnei Ha'am, all the Yidden should see this unbelievable miracle, how they flew over the Yarden into Eretz Yisrael. Continues the Gemara about Davazen Nenesh Uzzah. It's because of this that Uzzah, generations later, Uzzah was punished about this. Shenema, the pasuk describes, this is when the Aron, so we had this mentioned before, the Plishtim stole the Aron from the Yidden. And then the Yidden finally got the Arim back, and they were bringing the Arim back from where it was by the Plishtim. Now, Vayavayu ad Gairen Kidain, it came to this place of Gairen Kidain, and the Arim was being brought on a wagon. Vayishlach Uzzah es yadei lechaz es ha'arim, and Uzzah stretched out his hand to grab hold of the Arim. What happened was, when it was riding on the wagon, it looked like the Arim was slipping out of the wagon. So Uzzah jumped to sort of hold the Arim and to grab a hold of the Arim that it shouldn't fall down. Amalek Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibusha says to him, Uzzah, Noisav Nasa, if the Arim could carry the ones that were carrying it by the Kainim, that the Arim lifted up the Kainim over the Yarden, so Atzmai Lekol Shekain, so itself, it can't hold itself, that it shouldn't fall down on the floor, you don't have to come and grab it. The fact that you grabbed the Arim means that there was a chesaron of Amunah, that he didn't believe in the Kayach of the Arim itself, that the Arim could take care of itself, it doesn't need him to grab it. What happened was, Vayichar af Hashem b'Uzzah, the Eibishter was angry at Uzzah, Vayakeu Sham, and the Eibishter hit him over there, Al Hashal v'Gaimer. Now the Pasuk uses the term that the Eibishter punished Uzzah because of Al Hashal. What does Hashal mean? Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Elazar argue about this. Chad Omar Al Iskei Shaloi. It's regarding this story over here with the Arain. Shaloi means, Rashi says, that he forgot. So there's a shkaga, shoigig, that he didn't realize, he didn't pay attention that this is the Arain. I don't have to grab the Arain, it could take care of itself. And that's why the Eibishter punished him. V'chad Omar, another opinion says that there was something additional that happened there. She'asat tzrachav b'fanav. He had to relieve himself, and he was right there in front of the Arain, and he didn't go away, he didn't go to the side, he relieved himself right over there in front of the Arain. And that's why the Eibishter punished him. Vayamas Sham im Arain ha'alekim. But then the pasuk says that Uzzah passed away with the Arain. Why does it say this term? Im Arain ha'alekim, with the Arain. Rabbi Yechanan says, what this teaches me is, although he was punished then, but Uzzah ba leilam haba. But later Uzzah will have a portion in leilam haba. Shenema im Arain ha'alekim. With the Arain. What does it mean? Ma Arain la'olam kayam. Just like the Arain remains forever, as we know, the story with the Arain, that it concealed, it was hidden under the Kodesh HaKadoshim in the Beis HaMikdash. Af Uzzah ba leilam haba. So to Uzzah comes to leilam haba. And the pasuk describes Vayichar leDavid al sheparetz Hashem peretz b'Uzzah. David the Melech was very upset about what happened, that Hashem had punished Uzzah. Rabbi Elazar says, when it says this term Vayichar, that David was upset about this, that his face changed colors like a charara, like a cake that's being baked on coals, and it's black. So David the Melech's face got black like this cake. So the Gemara asks, is that what the term Vayichar always means? Whenever the Torah uses the term Vayichar Hachanami, the term Vayichar means black. We have other places in the Torah Vayichar and it doesn't mean black. So the Gemara says, no, Hasam Ksiv Af. By the Eibishter, it says Vayichar Af Hashem, for example. So over there it says Af. Af means anger. So over there it doesn't mean black. Hachaloi Ksiv Af. It doesn't say Vayichar Af David, it just says Vayichar Lid David. So Vayichar Lid David does mean that his face changed colors. Why was David HaMelech punished? And the punishment that we're talking about was this, that Uzzah was killed, and David HaMelech was also a cause for this. And the reason is, because Torah, David HaMelech that is, referred to Torah as songs. Shenema, as it says, that David HaMelech considered Torah to be like songs for him in the house where he dwelt. In the time when David HaMelech was running away, he was in a time of pain and danger. So David HaMelech said that the Torah is a song for me. Torah is where I get my pleasure. So the Eibusher says to him, regarding Torah, where the pasuk says, that if you blink your eye, then a second, so then you're not here. Right? So what does this mean? That if a person is Mashiach Das from learning Torah in a second, so you're supposed to learn Torah all the time. You consider the Torah to be like something which is a song. What's a song? A song, when you are interested, you sing the song. When you're not, you don't sing the song. But Torah, even for a moment, the person should not go away from the Torah. Because David HaMelech referred to it as a song, so the Eibusher says, I will cause you, David HaMelech, to stumble on something, and even children that learn Chumash Know this halacha. It says in the pasuk regarding carrying the aron from one location to another. When Yidden traveled in the midbar, what does it say? The Bnei Kahas, they carried the aron. They did not get wagons to carry the aron because you have to carry the aron on their shoulders. And that's and in future generations as well. The aron should never be placed on a wagon. You have to carry it. And here, David HaMelech, he was bringing this aron back. He was bringing the aron back from the Pelishtim, and he put it on a wagon. He brought it on the wagon. So this was something that David HaMelech stumbled upon. Why? Because he referred to the Torah as a song. So there's a famous, in Tanya, towards the end of Tanya, one of the last things in Tanya, in Kunter Sachar, the Rebbe speaks about this Gemara Barichas. One of the points Alter Rebbe there says is that David HaMelech refers to the Torah as a song, meaning that the Torah could be used for a person to elevate him from his place where he is in a difficult place. That's the Kayach of Torah. But what's the emes? Torah is completely higher than the Metzias of the world. Kadma La'ilam. That's not the Maila of Torah. The fact that a Yid uses the Torah, the Geschmack of Torah in his learning, that's a much lower level in Torah that relates to a person. This Shayrish of Torah is much higher and higher. Alter Rebbe explains this in Barichas, explains it also in connection to this punishment that happened to David HaMelech. Dr. Gemara weiter.
The song itself wasn't enough to punish him because he called it a song.
Right.
That's why David marshaled him
in the right, exactly. The story with the Agola. Payach ba'anshe beishemesh. Okay, then there's another place where it says this is all. I think this was at a different time, but also when the Aron was being brought from one place to another, and when the Aron came to the area of Beis Shemesh, so they were able to punish the people of Beis Shemesh. Why? Kiro ba'Aron. They saw the Aron. So the Gemara asks, what does that mean? Why are they being punished if they saw the Aron? Mishum dero vayach. They saw, so they got punished. Rabbi Vav and Rabbi Lazar argue about this. Chad Omar, one says what happened was, the people of Beis Shemesh, they were out in the field doing their work. They were cutting the harvest season. And while they were working, they bowed down to the Aron, meaning they didn't stop from their work. And that wasn't respectful for the Aron. They also said something inappropriate, something not nice regarding the Aron. What they said was, Man emreich the imrais. Who got you angry? Who caused the anger that you got angry and that you were taken into captivity by the Plishtim? Uman asa Allah the ifaisach. And now, who came and appeased you that you're being redeemed from captivity? That's, in other words, it was speaking about the Aron, sort of saying that, look, the Aron was captured, now it's being redeemed. What happened? They were punished, and it says there in the pasuk, "Vayach ba'am shivim ish v'chamishim elef ish." The Eibishter killed 70 men and 50,000 men. So it says here twice in the pasuk ish. Why? Rabbi Vav and Rabbi Lazar also argued about this. Chad Omar, one says the way to read this pasuk is shivim ishayu. There were only 70 men that died. But each one of these men that were killed here were as powerful and as great as 50,000 Yidden. Chad Omar, another says, no, chamishim elef. There were 50,000 that died there. Each one of them was so great, shakul keshivim Sanhedrin. Each one of them was as great as 70 Sanhedrin. Pasuk says regarding the Aron that when they brought finally, this is already towards the end, once they were bringing now the Aron back to Yerushalayim, so it says Vayihi kitzadu noise Aron Hashem. When the ones that were carrying the Aron were walking with it and carrying it, Shisha tza'adim, they took 6 steps, Vayizbach shoyer miri, and they shechted a very fat ox as a carbon. But now there's another pasuk in another place where it describes the karbanos that they brought as they were bringing the Aron back to the Beis Hamikdash, shiva parim v'shiva elam, that they shechted 7 bulls and 7 rams. So was it 1 fat ox or was it 7 bulls and 7 rams? Amar Papa Bashmuel al kol psiya upsiya, for every step that they took with the Aron, shayr miri, they shechted a fat ox over there, a carbon for every step. But I'll call sheish psiyas. For every 6 steps that they took, they shechted shiva parim v'shiva elam, 7 bulls and 7 rams. Amalei Rav Chisda responded to this pshat and said, in Cain, if that's the case, they brought so many karbanos on the way, mileisa as called Eretz Yisrael bamas. Literally every single step is another bama. They built another mizbech and they brought so many karbanos. Could that really be? So Elam Rav Chisda says the pshat is different. Al kol sheish v'sheish psiyais, as the pasuk indicates, right? Shisha tzadim. For every 6 steps, shayru miri, they shechted an ox. Al kol shisha sedarim shal sheish psiyais, when it was 6 times 6 steps, then shiva parim v'shiva elam. They brought 7 bulls and 7 rams. Another thing the Gemara concludes with regarding the Arain, Ksiv Kidain, regarding the place where the Aron was brought from. In one place, possibly quoted before, it says it was Gairin Kidain, or Ksiv, but then there's another pasuk where it describes the same place and it says Nachain. Nachain. So what's the difference between Kidain and Nachain? Why these two names? Rabbi Yechanan says, "Betchila kidain." In the beginning, the Arain became like a kidain, like a sword or like a spear that killed, because it killed Uzzah and the other stories that it said over there. The people that didn't give the proper honor for the Arain. But in the end, after it was there, the last place where the Aron was, it was in the house of an individual by the name of Ovid Edain. And Rashi brings that the pasuk describes the tremendous brachas that his house had because of the Aron being in his house for 6 months. That his wife, and he had 8 daughter-in-laws, they all gave birth 6 babies for this tremendous bracha that the Aron brought into their house. And therefore it's called Nachaim, because it built his home with all these babies that were born. That's one pshat. Rashi brings there another pshat that Kidain and Nachain actually goes in the place where the Aron was brought to in Yerushalayim in the Beis HaMikdash. And Rashi says, according to that Gersa, you get this in the Gemara, the opposite. That in the beginning it was Nachain. In the beginning the Aron was established there in the place, in the Beis HaMikdash, and it was Saif Kidain. Later, Kidain means that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and the Aron was hidden. Okay, now this was again an interruption, bringing about the Aron. But we're going now back to the Braisa, discussing the Yidden crossing into Eretz Yisrael. And they took the rocks out of the Yarden. So now the Gemara says, this is the Braisa continuing, so it comes out from here, Shloisha mine avanim hayu. There were 3 different rocks over here that the Yidden dealt with. Echad shehekim Moshe be'eretz Moav. There was actually one pile of rock that Moshe Rabbeinu already put up in the land of Moav before the Yidden crossed into Eretz Yisrael. Shenema be'ever ha'yarden be'eretz Moav hoyel Moshe be'er v'goyme. Moshe Rabbeinu explained the entire Torah and he wrote it on these rocks. And then the pasuk also says, "Chsafta alein is called divrei Torah azayis," that you're going to write the Torah on these rocks once they come into Eretz Yisrael. So va'asya be'er, we learn out the explanation of Torah that was written in the rocks when they were in Eretz Yisrael to the rocks that Moshe Rabbeinu established. And that's also that Moshe Rabbeinu put these rocks there and he wrote the Torah on them, 70 languages. So that's the rocks of Moshe Rabbeinu. Then ve'echad shehekim Yeshua b'toich ha'yarden. And then there's the rocks that were placed there inside the Yarden. Shenema shteim esrei avanim hekim Yeshua b'toich ha'yarden. And those rocks inside the Yarden were there to show the miracle that occurred in that area. And the echad shehekim ba Gilgal. Then there were the rocks that were brought into Gilgal. Shenema v'shteim esrei avanim ha'ela shalakchu v'goyme. These are the rocks that the Yidden took into Eretz Yisrael. And these were the same rocks that they then took to Har Eval, and they wrote on them the entire Torah into 70 languages. Tanarabanan. Now, another brayso we learned regarding the Torah that was written on these rocks that Yidden brought into Eretz Yisrael. So there's an argument exactly how the words of Torah were written on these rocks. Kate said, "Kosv Yisrael es Torah." How did Yidden write the Torah on these rocks? Rabbi Yehuda says, "Al gabe avonim kasvua." They wrote it directly on the rocks itself. Shenema v'chasafta ala avonim is called divrei Torah zayis v'goyme. You write the Torah on these rocks. But va'achaka chsodu oisam besid. And then afterwards, they covered the Torah that they wrote with plaster. You see over there in the Psukim, it says that they put plaster on these rocks. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, first they wrote the Torah in 70 languages on the rock itself. Then they covered it with plaster. Malay Rab Shimon. So Rab Shimon says, "L'dvarecha," according to your opinion, Heich lomdu umma Yisrael oiseh ezman Torah. So then, how did the nations of the world come and learn the Torah from these rocks that it was written on it? What was the whole reason why the Torah had to be written in 70 languages on these rocks? In order that the nations of the world should have the ability to read the Torah, and they should never later come and argue and say, we weren't given the chance to read the Torah. The Torah was written for them in 70 languages, and they read it, and they still didn't fulfill Torah. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Torah that was written on the rocks was covered with plaster. How did they read it? So the Gemara says, he answered him, Amar Loi, Rabbi Yehuda answered him, Bina Yisera Nasamem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eibusha gave the Goyim an extra understanding of how to be able to access the Torah that was written on these rocks. V'shigru Neitreyan Shalahem. They sent their scribes, that's what Neitreyan means. V'kilfu es hasid. They peeled off the sid, the plaster. And V'siyua, and they carried, in other words, Rashi says the siyua means they copied over the words of the Torah that were written there on the rocks, and they brought it along with them to from where they were coming from. And it's because of this that they were sealed, their decree was sealed to go into Be'er Shachas, to go into Gehenna. Why? Here they had the opportunity to read from the Torah, and they didn't learn the Torah. Rab Shimon argues and says, no, it was not written on the rocks directly. Al Gabe Sitka Svua. It was written on the plaster. First they plastered all these rocks, and then on this plaster they wrote the Torah. And additionally, Rab Shimon says another point, which he disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda. The Kosvel el Lamato, after they finished writing all the Torah in 70 languages, they then wrote Leman Yilmudu Eschem Lases Kachol V'Gaimer. That, and in this pasuk it says that the Yidden have to kill all the nations that are in Eretz Yisrael in order that Layilamdu Eschem Lases Kachol Tevaisam. In order for Yidden not to learn from their despicable ways. That's what they wrote at the bottom. Why did they write that on the bottom? To teach the Goyim the following. It's teaching these Goyim that it's only if you hold on to your despicable ways. But if not, then if you do tshuva, then they would be accepted. But Rashi here points out that this point here, when it says that this last line was written again for the Goyim to read this, to know that they have an opportunity to do tshuva, this is only regarding the Goyim that were outside Eretz Yisrael, or even from the Canaanim of Eretz Yisrael that left Eretz Yisrael, so they were able to come and read this and see that they can do tshuva. Regarding the 7 nations that were in Eretz Yisrael, the pasuk says, Leisachai kol neshama. They're in Eretz Yisrael, they can't allow them to live. But this was a message for the Goyim that left Eretz Yisrael to read this line, that if you'll drop your despicable ways, then your tshuva will be accepted. My time at Rab Shimon. What's the reason for Rab Shimon? That he says that the Torah was written on the plaster. Because there's another pasuk that says, V'hayu amim, that the nations of the world will be misrafai sid. They're going to be burnt like plaster. What does this mean? He says it means al iske sid. It means that they're going to be burnt. They're going to be punished because of this story with the plaster. What does it mean, the story with the plaster? That the Torah was written for them very clearly on the plaster on these rocks, and they read it, and they still didn't take the message. For Rabbi Yehuda that says that the Torah was not written on the plaster, it was written on the rocks directly. So what does the pasuk mean? Misrafai sid. It means kisid, that the Goyim will be burnt like plaster is burnt. Mas sid ein letakana el sreifa, just like plaster. In order for it to be renewed and refreshed, you put it into a furnace, and that it's burnt. Af at oisam akutim, so to the Goyim as well. Ein takana el sreifa, so they will also be burnt. Okay, so there's two. So the Gemara Text is focusing on the first argument regarding whether it was written on the rocks or on the plaster. Now the Gemara brings another detail. We'll finish with this. The argument whether there's another line that was written at the end there. According to whom there's Braisa that says Vishavisa Shivyai. So this is at the beginning of Parshas Kiseitze. It says Kiseitze la Melchama Alivecha. You didn't go out to fight. So what is this pasuk talking about when it says Kiseitze la Melchama? So Rashi says it means Kiseitze, when you didn't go out of Eretz Yisrael and they go to fight with Goyim Mechutz La'aretz. This is not talking about a Melchama to conquer Eretz Yisrael. It's talking about Yidden going out of Eretz Yisrael to fight the Goyim there. And it says Vishavisa Shivyai, and you will capture its captive. What does this refer to? What does it mean, a captive? L'rabbis Canaanim shebechutz la'aretz. This refers to Goyim of Eretz Yisrael, the Canaanim, that left Eretz Yisrael, and they were captured in Chutz La'aretz. And there it says Vishavisa Shivyai Shem Chayzerim B'Tshuva Mekablen Oisam. That if these Canaanim and Chutz La'aretz would do tshuva, we would accept them. And Rashi here adds and says, what does the pasuk talk about in the beginning of Parshas Kiseitze? It talks about the Vishavisa, it talks about the halacha of Yefas Toya, that you bring in a beautiful woman and then you can eventually end up marrying her a certain way, how you can end up marrying her. That pasuk means, even from the Canaanim, the halacha of Yefas Toya refers even to Canaanim, that they have a chance to do tshuva. So the Gemara says, come on, according to whose opinion is this? Rab Shimon. This is according to Rab Shimon. Why? Because Rab Shimon is the one that said that they especially wrote that additional line under the whole entire message of the whole Torah to give the message to the Canaanim that even though the Torah said that all the Canaanim should be killed, but nevertheless, that's only if you hold on to your despicable ways. But if you don't, then you have a chance to do tshuva. That's only according to Rab Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda holds they did not write that line again because they do not have that chance to do tshuva. So therefore, this Braisa goes according to Rab Shimon.